The call of the Hogs can be heard all the way to San Francisco.
You're listening to Pod at the Palace with Curtis Wilkerson on Inside Arkansas.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to the weekend, and welcome back to the Pod at the Palace. I'm your host, Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas. Today's episode is presented by Roback Apparel. Go to roback.com. That's RHOBACK.com and use code HOGSBY20 for 20% off your first purchase today. Some good stuff over there. How's everybody doing this morning? You guys all right? I hope you don't mind if we just kind of bounce around a little bit with some quick hits. Several different topics that I wanted to touch on a little bit. Maybe not the main deep dive, thought-provoking stuff that we've been doing the last few days here. Just wanted to riff a little bit without a bunch of deep prep, if I'm being honest. Thursday was kind of it was a heavy football day, which feels gross in a way, but it's good. I'm not going to lie. Me personally, I know some of you got a long ways to go, but the closer we get, the more, I can start feeling that fire in the belly a little bit for football season to get started. But, it's Arkansas. It was their day as they wrapped up things down there in Atlanta. But it did get me to thinking about, just all my memories from SEC basketball media days in Birmingham and just how different that experience is. It's really crazy. Like, it's a completely different setup and atmosphere, much, much more intimate for the basketball deal. But I think it's a lot better. And it's not just because it's basketball. I've just had some great times out there. And the one thing I'll say about basketball media days is it is a sprint. Whereas for football, it's a week-long marathon. With basketball, it's nuts. I mean, it's 16 head coaches, 32 players, one day. From like 8 a.m. until 5 p.m., it's nonstop action. You got multiple teams going at once. You got a coach at the podium. You got two teams worth of players off to either side. It's all over the place. And then you're trying to score, can you get Seth Greenberg or, Pat Bradley or whoever for an interview? It's crazy, man. It's just one day of absolute and utter chaos. And I think I prefer it. I really do. I was wondering if I was going to get FOMO with John being down there in Atlanta all week for the football media day stuff. And I gotta be honest, I haven't. Like, it would have been cool to be out there, but definitely, don't think I'm missing being away from home for a week there. But yeah, man, media day, basketball, it's a little bit different. Hopefully we get to go back down there again this year. Sure, we'll miss Bob Holtz exchanges in there, though. That was some of the best parts. Like, I know you guys will remember that viral back and forth he had with Cal his last year at Kentucky. He kind of opened things up. Bob did with the question. Cal's like, "Why are you always talking about Arkansas?" And Bob was like, "Why are you always talking about Kentucky?" Just funny stuff, man. And you could always count on Bob for some good questions, some laughs, some viral moments. That man didn't even know what viral meant, but he went that way several times. It was great, but just gold, It was always a lot of fun with Muss too, because he would get there with a couple of the players or whatever. And instead of, a lot of these guys will rub elbows with the other coaches or the national media guys or whatever. He would come grab me and Bob and John and Scotty, and we would just go sit in the hospitality room, have lunch together, and shoot the breeze off record. And learned a lot about that man during some of those exchanges. And, even a lot of what was said, we couldn't write about for our stories or whatever, but it made the entire trip worth it. Made you feel valued. It was really cool. Relationship building, right? At any rate, where do we want to start today? Because there were a few things I wanted to get to. Interestingly enough, a lot of reacting to other shows, I guess, is kind of where we're at. But how about this? John Calipari, Thursday morning, he went on Jon Rothstein's podcast for like 45 minutes. And he had some interesting stuff to say. Now, a lot of it was playing the hits, which is just what he does, right? But there was some takeaways from that. I listened to every second of it, and it was kind of funny because we talked the other day on this show about Peach Jam this weekend and how it's just the last opportunity for these coaching staffs to make a statement to the kids that you're prioritizing, like a show of force, right? And one thing that I found interesting that Cal said is that they kind of zeroed in on 7 or 8 guys at this point for their class. And if he wants to take 4 freshmen or whatever, but that's kind of who they're really, really following heavily. They've been doing the evaluations, all last year, throughout the spring, the whole grassroots season, and this is kind of the culmination. And I think that tracks based on the names that we've been throwing out there, 7 or 8. It's about where we're at. So there's that part of it. But he did say, and this is very, very true, like with NIL and revenue share and all that now, a lot of these coaches, they're just not going out to these grassroots events anymore because they don't feel like they have to. And it was funny. He was talking to Rothstein, Cal was, and he's like, I used to have to go out there and it was like I was doing the presidential waves, hello, everyone. Hello, player. I'm here. Let me make sure that I stand out amongst the crowd because there were so many other coaches and folks out there. And, now for a lot of these deals, it's a lot more about the evaluation. He mentioned wanting to see how the prospects have progressed from maybe the first session of the EYBL back in, when was it, March or April, to now. And how do they handle some adversity? Like what's the body language like when they struggle? And this is a tournament setting. So when you're playing, games that actually matter, the outcome, like how do you respond? How do you thrive under that type of pressure in big moments? And those are things that you can only really evaluate in person. And he's very right about that. But then, also being able to just kind of with the way the landscape has changed, hit these kids up and be like, yo, I am coming out here for you, to watch you, because I want you again. And I continue to do this. I didn't have to, because a lot of coaches are choosing not to, but just making these guys feel like they're not financial transactions, and that this is a full investment in player, person, and everything. So I like that. I thought it was a good response from Cal. And it also kind of goes back to what we've been talking about a lot here lately with these coaches having that decision. A lot of them are choosing to keep that piggy bank closed, right? Until the offseason. And then at that point, they'll either get transfers or they'll skip all the legwork that's going on right now and just offer these remaining freshmen, the Nate Mintz or whoever of the world, huge money at that point. Because in some cases, that's all it takes with these guys. You could recruit a kid for 3 years and be in great position with him, be on first name basis with a family, come in, take your shoes off, eat dinner at their house. Everything's great. And then somebody, comes in and offers you $250,000 more in NIL, and all that shit goes out the window. So there's some truth to that, and that's how some guys operate. Cal is not that way. So some pretty good takes from the man. I got to give him credit where credit's due. Now, if you do go listen, you can skip big portions of his interview with Rothstein because he recycled the same transfer portal stump speech and, all those different things. Like a lot of what he said to us last week, which is fine. But there's some good nuggets in there, man. He was asked about what he expects from his returners, just in terms of making jumps from last year to this year. I really liked what he said about Carter Knox in particular, about how he's kind of encouraged him, because probably some of the feedback he got too was, hey, can you have more volume from 3 or whatever? And he was like, that's fine, but don't fall in love with it. Like, you still got to stay true to you. Get downhill, get to the rack, get fouled, attack the offensive glass, be our best defender, like challenge yourself in that way. And I agree, because I think sometimes these guys go through the draft process, they get a bunch of feedback, and instead of adding to their game or improving to their game, what some of these, NBA scouts and staffs have kind of telling them that they need to work on, they try to reinvent themselves as players. And the strengths that got you there in the first place, you kind of put that to the side because you're working on all this other stuff. You could become a different player and you might not be as good of one. So I like that stay true to you type of mentality there. It was pretty hilarious because he mentioned open up practice to all of us in media last week, and how we all love Billy Richmond down here. And man, because he plays so damn hard. And like, never a truer statement has been said, because we all knew from the first time that Billy set foot on the hardwood. I remember being in Pine Bluff, Arkansas for that tip-off tour. And there's just like this random drills and, weirdly laid out practice and everything. But it was our first look at these guys in person. And I've sat and recorded a stand-up in that gym afterwards. And I remember saying, oh, y'all are going to love Billy Richmond. You're going to love him because he just embodies everything Razorback. blue collar type of guy. And hustle, diving on the floor, all that. From the minute he set foot on the hardwood, he was like a bat out of hell and a bull in a china shop, wrapped all into one. We knew he was going to be a fan favorite. So it was funny. Like, Cal's aware of that. He gets it. He also gave us as media credit for our Trevin Brazil glaze. So he does listen to the Pod at the Palace. I guess that's confirmed at this point. Good to know. But he did say that for Arkansas to be something good, that Trevin needs to be one of the best players in the country. I tend to agree, and I tend to agree to a degree, but we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a few minutes. A few other things from his interview with Rothstein that made my ears perk up. One of his quotes, he said, guys are loving playing with Darius Acuff because he finds everybody. Lobs to the big, skip passes to shooters, that his vision makes him a guy that, like if they split up teams or, they're running full court, whatever, the guys who get put on Darius Acuff's teams are like, yes, because they know they're going to get the rock. I like to hear that. He said last year at times Arkansas didn't have enough wiggle and they couldn't go get a bucket when they desperately needed one. But Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas are two guys who can go get you a bucket when you need one. We talked about that a lot. He said multiple times, talking about Isaiah Sealy. Hey, this is a 6'7" wing. He can shoot it, and he's better than we thought. He said that a couple times, unprompted. He brought up Isaiah Sealy, saying, hey, this dude's he's better than we thought he was. It's like, this isn't all new information necessarily, but what it did is kind of reaffirm a lot of those thoughts that he shared with us a week later. And that tells me that, some of what he said to us, it wasn't prisoner of the moment or prisoner of the day or just reacting to what he just saw out there coaching the team in that particular practice. Like, it's a pattern. And I think that's a good thing. I really do. But he did say something a little bit later on in that interview that I think it really stuck with me. It resonated with me. He said when Arkansas beat St. John's in the tournament, that there was suddenly just this feel with him, with the team, with the staff, that they could just go and do something crazy. And for me, that's what it's all about. He said that all you can do as a coach is make sure that your team has a chance to win the whole thing at the end of the year. Like, everything else that happens is going to happen. But if you can get to that point where you really believe at the end of the year that you could be the last team standing, that's all you can ask for. All bets are off. Like, stuff happens. We learned that against Texas Tech the hard way. In fact, he said that after the season, when they got back home from San Francisco, that Jonas Adu came into his office and he hugged him, thanked him for the opportunity, and they were just kind of sitting there talking. And he sat down on the couch and he threw his head back and he was just upset, and he apologized for missing that free throw late in the game against Texas Tech. And Cal was like, bro, 10 things had to go wrong for Arkansas to lose that game, and they all did. The free throw was just one of them. And then the flip side of that is sometimes 10 things have to go right for you to win a game. And maybe that was the case against St. John's the week before. But that's not the point. The whole process from summertime, like we're in now, it's predicated on having that moment at that time where you've done enough and you've come together to the point where everyone in that locker room, from player to coach, can just look each other in the eye and know without reservation, hey, we can beat anyone. That's what it's all about. Fires me up, man. So when he got asked at the end of the interview what has to happen for Arkansas to be in position basically to cut down the nets, and it was like, hey, we got to share the ball, we got to be as good defensively as we always have been, but we need two of our guys to be top 10 players. He's not saying top 10 draft picks, he's just saying top 10 guys in college basketball. And it's interesting because you think about a guy like Darius Acuff is potentially one of the better freshmen in the country. You think about all the things he said about Trevin being one of the better forwards in the entire country at the end of last season, the strides that he's made, make the jump that you're expecting from Carter. Like, all these guys, can you get two to be that good? Can you have that Batman and Robin type of duo with all the pieces surrounding them that you need? We'll see. I'm getting excited, though. The team leaves campus, by the way, next Friday, a week from when you're listening to this show. They're wrapping up summer workouts, and they won't be back until August 18th. So, like the challenge then is, as Cal said, is to be professionals. Act like a pro. Just because you're gone doesn't mean that that the work stops. Stay in the gym, keep grinding, stay hungry, get better. I'm telling you, he's got me fired up, man. Jon Calipari has me very, very fired up. I might need to call Basis Health to get my blood pressure regulated because it's got my adrenaline going. I'm too jacked up for this basketball program right now to get in the car and try to drive to the doctor to get checked out. I can't do it. I might drive straight through a brick wall. It's too risky. Thankfully, Basis Health is changing the way that healthcare is delivered with those mobile medical visits. Send somebody out to me. I can't go to you right now. Too much going on. My heart's jumping. They'll come out to you for primary care, urgent care, IV hydration, and more. I could use all that and more at this point, but check them out. BasisHealth.org. Scan that QR code in the top right-hand corner of your screen. Let them come to you instead of you go to them. Basis Health is here for you when and where you need them the most. Okay. So, I said at the beginning of the week, we got a few topics written down that I wanted to make sure we touched on. I said at the beginning of the week, I want to start getting into some listener questions and topics that you guys bring up, throughout the rest of the summer. So I think this is a good time to start it today because this is a fun question. And it's one that kind of parlays into some other info news tidbits that we probably need to get to anyway. So Matt Smith, who ironically enough, I went to high school with, shout out McCrory Jaguars. Let's go. But he asked what my dream schedule would be. And this is the interesting thing about this is we're fairly close to having it. If I'm being honest with you, I'd love these big marquee showcase neutral site types of games in big venues. Exactly what Arkansas is doing. Duke in Chicago at the United Center. That's awesome. Texas Tech in Dallas at the American Airlines Arena. That's awesome. Houston and Brooklyn at Barclays. That's electric. Madison Square Garden last year. Do things like that, man. That's awesome. To me, you either do a handful of those or you get into one of those big events. And, you got the Mauis of the world, Battle for Atlantis. Arkansas has been in those last few years. I would love to see Arkansas get in that Players Era Classic that they're doing now in Las Vegas where you get, 3 really good games or whatever, but there is NIL money on the line. Like the winner gets $1 million for NIL. Runner up gets $500K. The Final Four gets $250K, whatever it is. Cal would never do that. It's just not his thing. Like he's historically not. He doesn't do Maui. He doesn't do those things. Doesn't like those 3 games, 3 days types of events. He prefers the one-offs, the showcases, spotlights on us. But I think it's awesome. So maybe he'll change his mind on that one day, or maybe the new coach, whenever that happens, a decade from now, 12 years from now, whatever he said, maybe they'll do something like that. But I think the Players Era thing is pretty sweet. But outside of that stuff, I think if you can get 2 big home games in Bud Walton Arena in non-conference, that's awesome. Like we can do the dream schedule thing. And I'm like, oh, it'd be awesome. It would get Duke and North Carolina and Kansas and UConn all in Bud Walton Arena in a given year. Yeah, of course. But also trying to be realistic with it. I think if you get 2 really good non-conference home games in Bud every year, that's really cool. It's like Louisville coming in this year. That's sick. That's awesome. It sounds like there's potential for that Baylor game that's not happening to maybe happen next year in Bud. Get that thing going. Michigan State coming to Bud Walton Arena next year. So you have a potential maybe to get those 2 games in Bud and Fayetteville next season. That's awesome. Love that. I think Kansas makes a lot of sense to me. It's not that, it's like, 3.5 hours or something? It's always been a little bit silly to me that they don't play more often than they do, or at least play on each other's campuses. They play in the NCAA tournament every year. You can't play on each other's campuses. That's easy. So I think that would make sense. Dream schedule stuff. I think getting Eric Musselman and USC over here for an actual game, that would be electric. Would love to play Rick Pitino and St. John's in the Garden. Go there and play them. Why not? You basically just played them in a true road game in Providence and you kicked their ass. So go play them in the Garden. Get them again. I think it'd be awesome. I really, really like the idea of having at least one true road game in non-con, just so you aren't shell-shocked the first time you go to an SEC venue. Remember how Arkansas looked at Tennessee last year? That was rough, man. Michigan State this year going up there, that's perfect type of game for them. And then, like, I get it. You're going to have the bye games. Everybody has them. But how can you make them interesting? You know, like teams that you're probably going to beat up on, but give me some kind of storyline. Like, get Gus Argenal and UC Riverside in here. It'd be cool. Get John Pelphrey and Tennessee Tech in here. I don't care. At least it's something to talk about. You know what I mean? It's just a little bit different. It adds a little bit of juice. That's why I liked when they brought Oakland here last year. For Cal, could you get UMass come to Bud Walton? We talk so much about, like scheduling Memphis or whatever and playing Kentucky. What about UMass? Like the history he has there. Could you get them down here? Things like that where there's just some sort of storyline, I think would be really, really cool. I like that idea. Now, a few actual schedule updates. The Baylor game officially off, which this was coming down the pipes. Unfortunately, we saw it coming. Cal outright confirmed it. Like, hey, it's not happening. Stinks, but it is what it is. There is a chance, though, that Arkansas at least gets a decent home replacement. We'll see what it looks like. And credit to my buddy JC for the reporting here. And I talked to him a little bit more about it earlier on Thursday. But Duke is not going to be a part of the MTE, the multi-team event this year for Arkansas, as I was previously told. So that complicates things a little bit because you want to get that. And then at this stage of the game here in mid-July, there's not another high major team to pair with. So like you can do it where Arkansas is just kind of the solo host for it, and you get 3 low majors or whatever. Everybody kind of plays each other. You get 3 home games. All right, fine. But I guess this company that's working on putting this thing together, if they can get another opponent to kind of co-host with you, which would basically mean they would get the 2 lower teams at home and then they would come play you type of deal. There's more money involved in being able to do that. It's better financially, I guess, for everyone. So Arkansas, they're working to find a higher end mid-major. So you might be losing Baylor here, but could you add a team that's, in the upper tier of the AAC or the Atlantic 10 or Conference USA, somebody like that, where it would be Arkansas, them, and then, a couple low majors or whatever in this round robin deal where Arkansas gets all 3 of them at home. And that wouldn't be too bad if that worked out. There's some good teams to be played. Like want to get Dayton or VCU in here, or, like whatever. I think it'd be a lot of fun. So we'll see what comes of that. The Mount St. Mary's game that just got scheduled is off. They're still going to play at home on that date. I think they might still play a team from that conference. It's just going to be a different opponent. So, and I don't know why that wound up not working out. I'm really not sure what the deal was there. So some things are still in flux. A few other updates. There's still no date just yet for that Michigan State road game. It looks like it's going to need to be in December. I don't know that for sure. They're still working on it. And it's good. The game is happening. The question is when, like what date? Cal is trying to get CBS to pick up the Houston game. The Duke game is going to be on CBS Thanksgiving Day, trying to get them to pick up that Houston game on December 20th. That'd be cool. Little Saturday action. Also, I did find this interesting when he was talking to Rothstein. Cal said that he actually didn't want to play this Texas Tech game. Didn't want it because he didn't want to have to bring up the Sweet 16 game to this team. But he was very adamant about playing in Dallas and wanted to play the best game that he possibly could there. And so this was it, which I find interesting. I'm glad they're doing it. And as soon as we saw it scheduled, I was like, oh yeah, I love this for the motivational factor and everything like that. A little bit of revenge for these 4 returners. And then Cal gets asked about it. He's like, nah, dude, like I didn't want to play this game for that reason. So shows you what I know, right? Okay. So that's one thing. So some schedule updates there for you. And then we had another question from a few people, like our buddy Unbiased Brim, who we appreciate. It was fun kicking it with him in Providence, as well as a couple folks in our members only stream on Wednesday, which went for 2.5 hours. Me and Andrew just riffing, which was a good time. But basically just asking for my thoughts on the Field of 68 and their offseason grades for Arkansas that they put out. And It's interesting because they gave him an A- overall grade for the offseason. And I think I gave Arkansas an 8 out of 10. So kind of seems like we're in lockstep here, which is weird. But you guys know how I feel about Jeff Goodman and Rob Douster. I listen to them all the time because I love college basketball content. I respect what those guys do. But when they start doing the agenda thing with Cal, it pisses me off. It's just the way it is. So because people asked, I would have listened anyway, but I took some notes. And so here we go. I got to say, I thought they were mostly fair. I really did. I agree with Jeff Goodman's expectations that he laid out there, where he said this Arkansas team should be in the top 25 all year. Like this shouldn't be this not, the 0-5 nonsense dropping out on the bubble all of a sudden. Now this is a team that should be in the thick of it all year, in the conversation for an SEC regular season championship and a Sweet 16 floor. I agree with that. Now, if those things don't happen, am I going to be like getting my pitchfork out and let's go burn down Bud Walton Arena and get Cal out of here? No, I'm not. But you want to see progression. And so I think the baseline, when you have this, these guys returning and the pieces you have coming in, it's like, well, the end game should at least be where you were last year. I think that's fair. I think it's a fair expectation there. I also agree with Goodman that I'm just not crazy about the 8-9 man rotation deal. But I think it left out a little bit of context with some of these other guys, right? Because like we don't know about Paulo Samito yet and how he could factor in. Yes, I would have loved it if they still would have gone out and added Igor Rizov, who we talked about so much, or something like that. Then I'd be over the moon. Like that would be a 9 or a 10 on my grading scale there. I will add, though, that Goodman also pointed out that Arkansas, even if they have like an 8-man rotation or whatever, that they still have a lot of versatility. And I agree with that. They also never mentioned Isaiah Sealy in the equation. I don't fault them for that because he's like their best kept secret. Those guys haven't been here. They're not in the weeds with Arkansas every day. They look at it and they see, oh, okay, yeah, they got this, top 100 freshman or whatever. Okay, not going to factor in. But we know better. And so, like, if they were hip to that, they might feel a little bit differently about the type of depth this team has. So I get it. Rob Douster said that he feels like DJ Wagner is the X factor. And I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. Like, he's obviously a very important piece of the operation, but after 2 years, you at least know that the floor is relatively high with DJ Wagner. If there's one thing about DJ, you kind of know what you're going to get. I mean, it's double-digit scoring, give you a few assists, good defense, couple turnovers, and shooting. He can get streaky and get hot for you. So, like, if he makes a massive leap, that's big for Arkansas, but he doesn't have to do that for Arkansas to be really good or to max their potential, in my opinion. He also kept saying that DJ needs to become like Kylan Boswell from Illinois. I would argue that he already is that for the most part. Like, I don't think an improved DJ would reach Kylan Boswell levels. Like, an improved DJ Wagner would be above that. I think he should be aiming a little bit higher, personally. This is my evaluation of the two guys there. Goodman had Darius Acuff as the X factor for Arkansas. So basically saying, like, at the end of the year, if Acuff is a lottery guard, then Arkansas could go from very good to, like, potentially special. And so I think that's fair. I mean, you guys have an argument with that? I don't really. For me, I think Trevin is probably my X factor, just because, like, the variance between what Trevin Brazil has been his whole career versus what he looked like at the end of last season and what he looks like now this summer is it's the variance between just like a veteran role player and an All-American. Like, it's literally that wide. And maybe he winds up falling somewhere in between. That's okay, but they still do not have a proven or like a known answer at the 4 beyond him. So he really has to be good, in my opinion. It's like what else? Like, I disagreed with the critiques that they kept having on Cal's coaching. That really got on my nerves because I get it, like, coming into Arkansas for sure, But didn't he put a lot of that to bed? Like, we're talking like X's and O's and system here. Like, did they just ignore the adjustments and the job that Cal did coaching this team last year? Like, you had the short roster. You lose Boogie, you have to reinvent yourself. You lose Adu, you have to reinvent yourself. You're running stuff through Big Z, and then he hits a slump, and then all of a sudden Jonas gets healthy. That changes the way that you have to play. And they were still able to do everything they needed to do to get into the NCAA tournament and win a couple games in there. I thought he did a phenomenal job coaching. I really did. They were great defensively. They figured some things out with that pick and roll defense. Very impactful first shot defensive team. I thought he started letting that chalk talk a little bit. Like, how many times did they score out of timeouts or baseline inbounds and things like that? They really got some things going there. I thought he did a great job. Like, he didn't modernize necessarily, which is what people are looking for. Of like, oh, you got to shoot 35 threes a game or whatever. No, he didn't do that. Kind of stuck to his guns, but boy, what he did and the adjustments he made sure worked. So I wish he would have got a little bit more credit for that, or at least maybe just don't use that as a critique for him. They kind of disregarded Malik Thomas as a shooter, as they were like, whoa, where's the shooter? Where's it coming from? Whatever. They don't have a sniper. Well, they might. They call Billy Richmond a ball dominant, high volume guy, which is that's just not accurate. So yeah, like whatever, like little nitpick things here and there. Again, they're not in the weeds with Arkansas every single day. The only biggie I think that really kind of irked me was Goodman saying that Arkansas had and spent top 5 money, that maybe they were second to Kentucky in terms of this roster with NIL, their payroll. That's just unequivocally false. It's just not true. Sorry. Like, Arkansas had plenty, their roster's in that $10 million range or whatever, but this is not a rent-a-roster type of team put together here. And they also didn't have to be that way. Like, you had to give guys raises or whatever for retention, but the reason why a lot of these teams have 14, 15 plus $1 million payrolls is because they had to do so much rebuilding through the portal at a time where things were inflated, right? The cost of doing business is higher than ever. Well, Arkansas only had to do that with a couple guys. So maybe they did have it, but does Arkansas have the number 2 payroll in college? Hell no. No, they just don't. Kentucky spent more, BYU spent more, Texas Tech spent more, St. John spent more, North Carolina spent more. Like, the list could go on and on here. He said they were top 5. They might not be top 5 in the SEC. Let me think about this for a second. Yeah, I don't know, maybe. But it's not clear cut. So that one just kind of struck me as, I don't know about that one, buddy. But no, I thought they were mostly fair. Didn't come across as having an agenda, which I appreciated. Complimentary of things. In fact, Goodman said, hey, in this era, if I was to build a roster myself, this is exactly how I'd do it. Like, can you return 4 of your top 8 contributors? Check. They've done that. Can you get a couple high-level top-end freshmen? Check. They've done that. And then can you go out and get some transfers to fill your needs? And check. They did that at the center position. So yeah, maybe you could have got another guy or whatever. Maybe they could have upgraded over DJ. Well, people say that, and it's like, how many guards in the transfer portal could Arkansas have gone out and gotten that would come in right away and, be able to play 35 minutes a game for you, be your best perimeter defender, score double digits, and do the things that DJ did? Like, I'm not saying he's a perfect player. I'm not saying he's an all-SEC player, but I don't know that there were that many guys out there in the portal that you could have gone and brought in to upgrade on DJ, especially when you factor in this is his 3rd year, not only in the SEC, but in John Calipari's system with his familiarity with these guys and everything like that. Very, very valuable. So it felt like maybe that discounted him a little bit. And they even said, like, it would have had to have been a PJ Haggerty type of talent. Okay. So, like, I agree that, like, at player to player, that's an upgrade. But how much better would Arkansas have been if they kicked DJ to the curb and brought PJ Haggerty in here? I wonder. Maybe a little bit. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I'm gonna have to put some thought into that. We might do a segment on that tomorrow or something. We'll see. But anyway, I think that's good. That's good for today. Went over 30 minutes. Like I said, we've been doing kind of some of these deep dives, some more thought-provoking stuff, looking ahead, breaking down, Cal's comments. But there was just several different things that I wanted to get to. Cal continues to do his world tour, and I thought it was good stuff with Rothstein. Yeah, I get it with the field of 68. I wish that I could have ragged on those guys more, but I thought they did a decent job. Some schedule stuff. We bounced around a little bit, but I feel like it was informative in the end. So going to get out of here for the day. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, tapping in as always. If you're not subscribed to the Inside Arkansas YouTube channel, do that. If you would like to be a member with us, to where you can be privy to those members only streams and some of the nonsense that we're doing, the giveaways and all that. And by the way, if you won some of our trivia during the members only stream the other night and you DM me, I got those. I'm going to send that to John. We're going to make sure we get sent to you guys what you need. So didn't ignore you. Don't worry about that. But you can, if you go to our YouTube channel, you can subscribe to the channel, do that. And then right beside that, it says join. Do that. Come be a part of the sicko community out there. We'd appreciate it. But thank you guys. As always, we'll see you bright and early tomorrow. We ride at dawn on the Pod at the Palace. So 6 a.m. Be on the lookout. It's been Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas. Y'all have a good one. See you tomorrow.